Some actors don't lose a role because they weren't good enough. They lose it because someone whispered, "He's gay now." In this episode of Rainbow Spotlight, we're revealing 5 rising stars whose careers took a sharp turn the moment they came out. These weren't scandals. There were no meltdowns, no bad headlines. Just quiet emails, canceled auditions, and we've decided to go another direction. From Broadway heartbreaks to network show rejections, these actors didn't just lose jobs. They lost the chance to be seen as leading men. Which story hits hardest? Drop a 1 to 5 in the comments. And where are you watching from? Because trust me, number 3 will change how you see Hollywood forever. Ready? Let's talk about the roles they never got and the reason why. Isaac Cole Powell. Too bold, too beautiful, too out. From the moment Isaac Cole Powell walked onto the Broadway stage in Once on This Island, something shifted. His presence wasn't just magnetic, it was commanding. With razor-sharp cheekbones, a velvet voice, and a calm fire behind his eyes, he made people stop and feel. That kind of charisma doesn't go unnoticed in Hollywood, and it didn't. When he was cast as Tony in the Broadway revival of West Side Story, it felt like the door to mainstream stardom had finally opened for a gay, biracial man. He had it all: talent, presence, critical acclaim, and a devoted following. But as fast as the spotlight found him, the machinery behind it got nervous. Isaac wasn't trying to play a version of gay that was palatable. He didn't water it down. He spoke about being queer and biracial. He posted shirtless selfies and pride shoots that celebrated joy and softness. He didn't act like a brand, he acted like a person. And that's where the problems began. Producers loved the talent, just not the visibility. A major film studio circled him for a YA adaptation role, only to ghost him after an executive flagged his too bold social media presence. Another project, a gritty LGBTQ plus indie drama, fell apart because financiers were unsure about his market appeal. Imagine that, too gay to play gay. One casting director told his agent point blank, "He's amazing, but he makes some execs nervous." Nervous? About what? Representation that isn't dipped in beige and silence? Then came the quieter punishments, being dropped from short lists, being passed over in favor of straight actors willing to take a risk, being told to tone it down if he wanted leading man roles. Some even claimed he was too fashionable, as if his runway looks were somehow a liability in a world that praises red carpet royalty. But Isaac didn't bow out. He leaned in, harder. He booked campaigns with luxury brands. He walked fashion weeks. He gave interviews that were raw, honest, and challenging. He used his platform not just to promote his work, but to demand better stories, better representation, and better respect. He told the truth, even when it cost him. And in doing so, he's become something more than a leading man. He's become a symbol. For every young queer artist who was told to be less, Isaac is a living answer. Don't. His roles may have been stolen, delayed, or redirected, but his influence is undeniable. And make no mistake, he's just getting started. With every boundary he refuses to shrink for, Isaac Cole Powell expands the frame for everyone else. Drop a 1 if you believe Isaac should have already had his own franchise. Dan Amboyer, the leading man who came out and vanished. Dan Amboyer had all the makings of a mainstream heartthrob: tall, blue-eyed, chiseled jaw, trained in classical theater. And when he landed the role of Prince William in William and Catherine, a royal romance, people started paying attention. He wasn't just another soap star. He had that magnetic, clean-cut charm casting directors dream of. Behind the scenes, Dan had been living a full life, out to family, in a committed relationship. Comfortable with who he was, but publicly, silent. Because from the start, reps and agents warned him, if you come out, you'll stop getting straight roles. If you want to be the romantic lead, don't ruin the illusion. If they know, they'll stop believing you. So Dan waited. He played straight roles, wore the smiles, avoided red carpet questions. Behind the curtain, he was building a life and protecting it. But after years of pretending, the gap between truth and public image became too wide to manage. In 2017, Dan made a bold choice. He came out publicly in a personal, heartfelt essay and quietly got married. The response? Fans were overwhelmingly supportive. But the industry? That was another story. The calls didn't come like they used to. Projects that were interested suddenly cooled off. One network drama rescinded a callback, citing creative changes. He was still the same actor, still good-looking, professional, and deeply trained. But now, he was gay, and no longer the default for roles that required romantic chemistry with women. Even more telling, projects that marketed themselves as LGBTQ friendly didn't call either. Dan wasn't loud or political. He didn't fit the gay best friend mold or the flamboyant sidekick role. He was just normal. And that was the problem. He wasn't straight enough for the mainstream, and not quirky enough for coded gay casting. He became invisible in a space that once treated him as the next big thing. But Dan didn't backtrack. He leaned into directing, writing, and indie theater. He continued working in spaces that valued craft over branding. He kept showing up as himself, even if that meant losing the big roles, even if it meant being a cautionary tale to closeted actors still debating whether or not to speak. Because Dan's story isn't about being rejected for who he is. It's about being erased for refusing to lie. And in that erasure, something radical happened. His truth became more powerful than any role he could have booked. His story became the thing people remembered, even if Hollywood tried to forget. Drop a 3 if you think Dan deserved way more than a royal biopic. Nico Tortorella, too fluid for Hollywood. Nico Tortorella was never easy to label, and that's exactly what made Hollywood uncomfortable. Best known for their role as the charming, tattooed heartthrob Josh in the series Younger, Nico seemed destined for the kind of career built around rom-coms, edgy dramas, and a perfectly sculpted jawline. For a while, that's exactly where they were headed. Producers loved the look. Casting directors loved the vibe, and networks loved the ambiguity. Queer-coded but straight-presenting, edgy but safe. Then Nico started telling the truth. They came out as sexually fluid, then gender fluid, then non-binary. And the more honest they became, the more nervous the industry got. Nico wasn't just breaking boxes. They were refusing to exist in one at all. And in Hollywood, where casting rooms still rely on types, Nico's refusal to play into either the straight male lead or the palatable gay sidekick made them a problem no one wanted to solve. Even after building major momentum on Younger, the offers that came next were flat, stereotypical, one-dimensional. They were asked to play it more masculine or just say gay, not fluid. One studio rep even said, "You're incredible, but we just don't know where you fit." At one point, Nico was in the final stages for a lead role in a streaming series based on a best-selling novel. The showrunner loved them. The director was on board. Then a studio note came in. "We don't think Middle America is ready for someone that openly non-binary in this kind of role." They were out, quietly. No press, just a change of direction. It wasn't the only time. Multiple projects strongly considered Nico until someone upstairs realized their openness about identity might confuse the audience. Some LGBTQ plus roles even went to straight actors with a wider demo appeal. The message was loud and clear. Authenticity was risky. But Nico didn't shrink. They started a podcast, The Love Bomb, about modern sexuality, wrote a raw memoir, and began pushing visibility on red carpets, in interviews, and even through poetry. While some turned away, others turned toward younger fans, queer artists, and creators who finally saw someone who wasn't bending to fit the mold. Nico is a reminder that the industry still wants queerness in theory, but often only when it looks a certain way. They could have hidden, could have straightened up and climbed higher, but they didn't. And because of that, they lost roles, but gained a voice that's louder than any scripted part. Drop a 2 if Nico's honesty made you feel seen or challenged, because truth like that doesn't fade, it echoes. Brian J. Smith, the sci-fi star who lost his spotlight. Brian J. Smith was supposed to be the next big thing. A classically trained actor with a deep baritone, rugged looks, and a vulnerability that drew audiences in, he rose to global fame as Will Gorski in Netflix's cult sci-fi series Sense8. For a while, it looked like Brian was on the fast track to leading man status. He played the quiet hero, the emotional anchor, the straight cop with a soft center, and most viewers had no idea he was hiding a truth that was eating him alive. In interviews, he stuck to vague answers. He avoided personal questions. His life off-screen was carefully edited. But inside, there was fear. Growing up in Texas, Brian knew exactly how the world treated boys like him. He learned to act not just on screen, but in life. In 2019, years after Sense8 had ended, Brian finally came out publicly in a deeply personal Attitude magazine interview. And what he revealed shocked many. He'd been outed in high school, bullied, shamed, and pushed so deep into the closet that it nearly broke him. Acting, he said, was the only place he could hide in plain sight. But coming out didn't give Brian a breakthrough moment. It didn't bring more opportunities. It brought silence. Before coming out, he was being scouted for big-budget action films and was in talks for 2 romantic drama leads, both of which fizzled out after his announcement. Producers wouldn't say it outright, but reps hinted it's about audience relatability. Translation? They didn't believe viewers would buy him as a straight lead anymore. Ironically, his role in Sense8, a show celebrated for its LGBTQ plus representation, became a double-edged sword. Some saw him as a queer icon, others typecast him instantly. Offers came in, but they were almost always gay sidekick, sassy roommate, or grieving husband roles. Brian turned them down. He refused to shrink himself into stereotypes after finally living truthfully. He didn't come out just to play watered-down versions of himself. He wanted nuance, complexity, humanity, and he knew that meant fewer roles, for now. He turned to theater again, smaller, independent projects, and in the process, he became something rare, an openly gay actor who didn't let the system box him in again after breaking out. He may not be headlining blockbusters, but he's telling the stories that matter to him. And for every closeted actor watching his journey, Brian is proof that truth doesn't kill talent. It refines it. Drop a 4 if you think Brian deserved a post-Sense8 glow-up Hollywood never gave him. Jake Borelli. The risk he took and what it cost. When Jake Borelli joined Grey's Anatomy as Dr. Levi Schmidt, he was playing the awkward intern with a heart of gold. At first, the character seemed like comic relief, nervous, clumsy, forgettable. But something shifted. Levi's story got deeper. He fell in love. And suddenly, Jake was at the center of one of the show's most touching LGBTQ plus romances. The twist? Jake wasn't out publicly. Not yet. Behind the scenes, he was weighing the risk of a lifetime. He knew playing a gay role could change his career, but what if he also came out himself? Would the industry still see him as marketable, romantic, desirable? Or would this one announcement follow him like a shadow? Still, when Grey's Anatomy aired Levi's first kiss with Nico Kim, another gay character, Jake made his move. On the same night, in a now iconic Instagram post, he came out to the world. It was emotional, honest, and terrifying. At first, the support poured in. Fans cheered the synchronicity of real-life queerness reflected on screen. Headlines praised the boldness. Grey's became even more of a queer-friendly legacy. But quietly, things started shifting. Outside of Grey's, Jake's reps noticed changes in the kinds of roles he was being offered. Before coming out, he was in talks for 2 indie romance leads, both straight, both requiring a heartthrob vibe. After the announcement, silence. The feedback was always vague. We're going in a different direction. He's great, but not quite what we envisioned. Translation: they didn't want an out-gay man playing straight romance anymore. Ironically, even when projects needed gay leads, Jake's name was rarely floated. Casting leaned toward newer, trendier faces, or actors who were more ambiguous in their branding. Jake had done the thing everyone told queer actors to do: be honest, be proud, and he was still being boxed out. Worse, some viewers began conflating Jake entirely with his Grey's character. "He's just that guy from Grey's," they'd say. Never mind his classical training, his comedic timing, his work outside the show. To many, his identity became his typecast. But Jake didn't backtrack. He didn't shrink. He kept showing up with humor, vulnerability, and integrity. He advocated for mental health, queer youth, and LGBTQ+ representation with depth, not just Instagram captions. He knew the truth. Coming out was never just one moment. It was a career-long conversation, and he was willing to keep having it, even if it cost him the roles he once dreamed about. Drop a 5 if you think Jake's bravery deserves more screen time and better roles. Some roles make careers, others reveal the rules of an industry still struggling with authenticity. These 5 actors didn't get blacklisted with headlines or scandals. They simply told the truth. And for that, they were quietly moved off the shortlist, passed over, rewritten out of the narrative. That's the scandal no one talks about. You can be gay in Hollywood as long as you stay soft-spoken, secondary, or safe. But the tides are shifting, slowly, because the more these stories come to light, the harder it becomes to ignore them. Which story hit you the hardest? Drop a 1 to 5 in the comments. And let us know, where in the world are you watching from? We'll keep uncovering what they try to bury. Because visibility doesn't end at the casting call, it starts with truth.